Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about something that silently steals years from our lives. Something that looks kind, sounds polite, feels generous, but slowly empties us from the inside. And that is the habit of pleasing everyone while forgetting ourselves. If you've ever said yes when your heart screamed no, if you've ever apologized for things that weren't your fault, if you've ever felt exhausted not because you worked hard, but because you tried to keep everyone happy, then this message is for you. There was a man named Daniel who believed that being loved meant being useful. Growing up, he learned that praise came when he performed well, when he behaved perfectly, when he caused no trouble. So he became the good one. The reliable one. The one who never argued. The one who always adjusted. Teachers loved him. Friends depended on him. His family admired him. But no one ever asked Daniel what he wanted. As he grew older, this pattern followed him everywhere. At work, he took on extra tasks even when he was drowning. When his boss asked if he could stay late, he smiled and said, "Of course." When coworkers missed deadlines, he covered for them. When someone else deserved responsibility, he quietly stepped aside because he didn't want conflict. People described him as selfless. Inside, he felt invisible. He would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he felt so empty despite being appreciated. He had the respect of others, but he did not have the respect of himself. He had approval, but he did not have peace. One evening, after canceling his own plans for the fourth time in a month to help someone who barely said thank you, something shifted. He caught his reflection in the mirror. He looked tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. And he asked himself a question he had never asked before: if I keep living like this, what will be left of me in 10 years? That question shook him. Because pleasing everyone feels noble in the beginning. It makes you feel needed. It gives you a sense of importance. But slowly, it becomes a cage. You start measuring your worth by how satisfied others are with you. You start fearing disappointment more than you fear losing yourself. Daniel realized he had built his entire identity around being agreeable. He avoided confrontation at all costs. He swallowed opinions. He laughed at jokes he didn't find funny. He agreed with decisions he didn't believe in. Not because he lacked intelligence. Not because he lacked strength. But because he feared rejection. Rejection felt like danger. So he chose discomfort over disapproval. But here's the truth he learned the hard way: when you constantly abandon yourself to avoid losing others, you still lose. You just lose yourself instead. The turning point didn't come in a dramatic explosion. It came in a small moment. A colleague once again tried to push their responsibility onto him. The familiar anxiety rose in his chest. The automatic "sure" formed on his lips. But this time, he paused. Just for a second. And instead of saying yes, he said, "I'm sorry, I can't take that on right now." The world did not collapse. The colleague looked surprised. Slightly annoyed. But the sky did not fall. The office did not burn down. Daniel did not lose his job. In fact, something unexpected happened. He felt lighter. That night, he slept peacefully. It was a tiny boundary. But it was the first brick in rebuilding his self-respect. Valuing yourself doesn't start with big, bold speeches. It starts with small decisions. It starts with noticing when you are about to betray your own needs just to keep someone comfortable. It starts with asking, am I doing this from love, or from fear? There was another story about a woman named Amara who believed that being available at all times meant being a good friend. Her phone never left her hand. She answered calls at midnight. She drove across town whenever someone needed advice. She skipped her own rest to comfort others. She told herself she was strong. But her strength was being drained. One day, after weeks of overextending herself, she fell sick. Nothing dramatic. Just exhaustion. Her body finally forced her to stop. As she lay in bed, messages kept coming in. Can you help me? Are you free? I need you. For the first time, she didn't respond immediately. And something painful became clear. Many of the people she always showed up for did not show up for her. It hurt. But it also taught her something powerful. She had trained people to see her as endlessly available. She had never communicated her limits. She thought setting boundaries would push people away. But by not setting them, she pushed herself away. Amara began to change slowly. She didn't disappear from people's lives. She simply stopped being on call 24/7. She let some messages wait. She chose rest over guilt. She said, "I can't today," without writing a paragraph of apology afterward. Some friendships faded. But the ones that remained became healthier. Because the people who truly care about you don't want a version of you that is constantly exhausted and resentful. They want a version of you that is whole. Pleasing everyone often starts in childhood. Maybe you were praised only when you behaved. Maybe you were criticized harshly when you made mistakes. Maybe love felt conditional. So you learned to adjust, to shrink, to accommodate. And over time, you forgot what it feels like to stand firm. But valuing yourself is not selfish. It is not rude. It is not arrogant. It is recognizing that your time, energy, and emotions are limited resources. And if you give them away without intention, you will eventually run empty. There was a young student named Leo who dreamed of becoming an artist. But his family wanted him to study engineering. His teachers praised logical careers. His friends talked about stability and money. So he silenced his creative voice. He told himself, maybe they're right. He enrolled in a program he didn't love. He performed well. He impressed everyone. But each day felt heavier than the last. He would secretly sketch late at night, hiding his passion like it was something shameful. One day, after months of inner conflict, he realized something painful. He had built a life that looked impressive from the outside but felt empty from the inside. And he understood this: if he continued living to meet everyone else's expectations, he would wake up one day successful but deeply unhappy. So he made a decision. Not a reckless one. A thoughtful one. He spoke honestly with his family. He explained his passion. He acknowledged their fears. He listened. It wasn't easy. There were disagreements. There were tears. But for the first time, he chose alignment over approval. Years later, Leo built a career around his creativity. Not because it was easy, but because it was his. And even on difficult days, he felt fulfilled. Because he was no longer living someone else's script. When you stop pleasing everyone, you will face resistance. Some people will be uncomfortable with your new boundaries. They may call you selfish. They may say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You are no longer willing to sacrifice your well-being for their comfort. Growth often disappoints people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But ask yourself this: is it better to disappoint others occasionally, or to disappoint yourself every single day? There was a father named Kareem who worked tirelessly to provide for his family. He never missed a bill. He never said no to overtime. He believed that love meant sacrifice. But his children rarely saw him. His wife felt distant. He was physically present in the house, but emotionally absent because he was always exhausted. One evening, his young daughter asked him, "Dad, why do you love work more than us?" The question pierced his heart. He realized he wasn't just pleasing his boss. He was pleasing society's expectations of what a successful man should look like. He had confused constant work with worthiness. So he made adjustments. He set limits on overtime. He protected weekends. He became more present at home. It didn't make him less responsible. It made him more balanced. And something beautiful happened. His relationship with his family deepened. He laughed more. He felt more alive. Valuing yourself doesn't mean neglecting responsibilities. It means not letting responsibilities erase you. Sometimes we think that if we stop overgiving, people will leave. And some might. But the ones who stay will stay for the right reasons. There is power in saying no without guilt. There is strength in choosing rest without apology. There is courage in speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. When you value yourself, your decisions change. You no longer chase validation. You seek alignment. You no longer over-explain. You communicate clearly. You no longer tolerate disrespect just to avoid conflict. You address it calmly. And slowly, your life begins to feel different. You wake up with less resentment. You feel lighter in conversations. You notice that your energy lasts longer. You start attracting people who respect your boundaries because you respect them yourself. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming authentic. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack for years, filled with everyone else's expectations, opinions, and demands. You thought it was your duty. You thought it proved your love. But in reality, it slowed you down. Now imagine setting that backpack down. Not throwing it away completely. Just removing what isn't yours to carry. That is what self-worth feels like. You don't have to argue with everyone. You don't have to prove yourself to everyone. You don't have to attend every event, accept every request, agree with every opinion. You are allowed to choose. You are allowed to prioritize your mental health. You are allowed to protect your time. You are allowed to say, "This doesn't work for me." The moment you stop trying to be everything for everyone, you finally become something real for yourself. And here's the beautiful irony: when you start valuing yourself, people often begin to value you more. Not because you demand it aggressively, but because you carry yourself differently. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your worth. Daniel eventually became someone who still helped others, but not at the cost of himself. Amara became a friend who was supportive but not self-sacrificing. Leo built a life aligned with his passion. Kareem found balance between duty and presence. Their lives were not perfect. But they were honest. And that honesty gave them peace. If you are someone who constantly says yes out of fear, if you are someone who feels guilty for resting, if you are someone who worries about disappointing others more than disappointing yourself, take this as your sign. You do not exist to manage everyone else's emotions. You do not exist to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You do not exist to prove your worth through endless sacrifice. You exist to live fully. To grow. To express. To rest. To choose. Start small. The next time you feel pressured to agree, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself what you truly want. And honor that answer, even if your voice trembles. Because every time you choose yourself with integrity, you build trust with yourself. And that trust is the foundation of confidence. Stop pleasing everyone. Start valuing yourself. And watch how your life transforms, not because the world changed, but because you finally did.